Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and we are back for our second conversation of the evening. It is still Tuesday, April the 10th, 2018. I'm with BZ Rieger and Lisa Flamino Rush. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
And Lisa and I had done a conversation in regards to transparency. And so BZ would like to get in on this too. Yay! I love this idea. Okay, so I've had even more. Lisa and I have still with that hasn't gone away. That whole topic for us, we're constantly talking about it. As far as I'm concerned, everybody needs to get on board with the idea of transparency. That's my feelings about it. But what did you want to say, BZ?
Well, I was just Lisa said a little something right, I think right before we started camera. So, but there was more that you didn't voice. So if you feel moved, go ahead and go down that path for a minute, because I think there's a lot of fun we can play with in that. What you're about to say, whatever it is at the moment that comes out.
Who?
You.
Oh. I'm sorry, I thought you started with Sheila for a moment. And I was saying something. See, no, I told you I do this. What was I saying?
I just intuitively feel into knowing about transparency.
Well, there's really lots of things, because, we have been talking about this for quite a while now. And I think it's mostly in regards to privacy versus, I guess just privacy. Like drawing boundaries.
So what does that feel like to you, private? Oh, and let me rephrase that. What do you think of, and I'm saying this intentionally, what do you think of when you think of privacy? Vis-a-vis, I don't want to be transparent. I want my own privacy.
Yeah, I don't know, secrecy, I guess. I'm having, difficulty where I am kind of drawing the line that for me, privacy, or this desire for privacy, is I'm exploring the difference between privacy and secrecy. Because I'm really sensitive to things that are hidden right now. I don't like that. I don't think that's a good plan for humanity. Mm-hmm. So I'm really trying to explore where my privacy, I don't know. I'm not even sure what I think privacy even means exactly. I really need to figure that out for myself. Okay. Because I know there's a lot of importance put on it. And when I think about it, I think of it in terms, too, of, a lot of the rules we have about privacy kind of have to do with commercialism, in my opinion.
And they're all...
So I'm not a fan of that. So to me, I'm not so sure whether I need privacy at all. So this is really a good subject, I think, for us to continue.
Yeah. So that was great, because that was the thinking part. And later on, we're going to play with the feeling part, which gets us in a whole nother thing, and we'll actually start to see what that frequency is, because there are two different frequencies.
Yes. Okay.
So when I had listened to, do you want to say something, Sheila?
Well, I had a question. I wanted to clarify. Are you saying that privacy and secrecy are two different frequencies? Is that what I heard you just say?
They are, but yeah, they are. But what I was actually saying was the thinking of privacy and secrecy, and the feeling, what does that feel like to you, are two different, very distinct frequencies.
Sure.
But yeah, so yes to both of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So when I listened to the transparency video,
yes,
and then because I stopped driving the car, so the last portion of the sacred marriage within video, which also speaks a little bit about transparency. A couple things that came to mind. So first of all, the idea on privacy, we talk about, well, we want our privacy and it's a right to privacy. And, people are up in arms because Zuckerberg, traded all this information and the 87 million people are going to get notified. And okay, so there's a lot of layers to that. Let me just...
Thank you for saying there's layers, because I'm sorry, I'm having a real problem with anybody who puts pictures out on the internet and wants to get upset because anybody can find them. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, but that's like 6 or 7 videos we can do. So, but keeping it to this, first of all, the whole idea of privacy and the right to privacy and all that kind of stuff is an illusion. Because, whereas there may be privacy between, me and Sheila, whether we knew each other or not, and you can't see it. But for the most part, there is no privacy. It's an illusion, just like the judicial system is an illusion. The systems and the supposed boundaries and doors and all that kind of stuff have never been there. They've only purported to be there. By design purported to be there, and all of the back doors and all of the large windows for the peeping toms and all that kind of stuff have always been there. They were never not there. So it's fascinating that people tend to get their knickers in a twist over privacy for something that really never existed in the first place. So then we think about transparency, and especially vis-a-vis transparency into expanded energies and energy frequencies, and there's a lot of different ways that you can come into contact with content of various, whether it's a channeling or a video or all sorts. So come into contact with content.
Okay.
Around fifth dimension, where there's transparency and all that kind of stuff. And people say, well, hang on, I'm not going to the fifth dimension if I can't have my privacy. So that's where, if we play a little bit more with the difference between what we think of when we think of privacy and when we feel into the privacy, that will help resolve some stuff. Before we play with that, I'd like to then say that what people tend to forget is when they think of if everything.
In case you can hear me, you have frozen, and I got a feeling we're actually going to lose her.
Let's see. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yay!
This little voice of Sheila whispered down a long tunnel. If you can hear me, you're frozen.
Come back.
I know.
So where did we lose each other?
Well, you were just starting to talk about the fact that transparency, or privacy is an illusion, and the difference between feeling into the two,
right?
Thinking and feeling,
right? The difference between feeling into what you feel into what you sense when you feel into privacy and when you think about it. And what I was going to say is, before we even get there, I just wanted to play with a little bit. People talk about transparency, and you heard what I said about when you come into contact with different content on the fifth dimension.
right?
And they talk about privacy. They talk about transparency. And so people think, well, I don't know. I think a common one, whether they actually, parse it out, is that, well, if there's transparency, then God will know if I'm, having sex or something. And that's because everything is known and everything is transparent and there's no privacy, and so that's part of it. And part of it is the thoughts and
Programming note. God knows you're having sex. Get over yourself.
Well, that's a whole other program because, yeah, God knows that you're having sex. The gods know that you're having sex, and Source does too.
I was going to say, because you are God, that's part of the issue for me. I'm sorry. I had to go there. I think, when you're having sex. No, sorry. Sorry.
Okay, so
we got bigger issues if that's what we're worried about. Just saying.
But when we think about that, we come from a linear perspective. We come from an indoctrinated, ingrained, programmed, very small, very constrained, very unloving, extremely, I was going to say fearful, but it's just fear. It's not a
if
case
you're worried about God seeing you having sex, you're afraid of something. That's for sure. Sorry.
So
go ahead.
Because when we talked about it in the last video, right? It's judgment. So I need my privacy, because if everything is transparent and all knows what's good, then there's going to be judgment. Because we assume that, because we've always had that, because that's the way our life of being constrained and small has been.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I just wanted to lay on the table there. That's not in the energy frequency of that dimensional neighborhood bandwidth. They do not go together. They are not in sync in the waves, in the frequency of that. And how can you have a firsthand experience of that yourself? Well, as the energies are changing, because you haven't jumped off Gaia's back yet, and so the frequencies are going up, and you're having responses within your body, your emotional body, your mental body, your physical body, all of that electromagnetic body, of in reaction to the different frequencies, because they're setting your body to a resonance, right? To frequency modulation, to shake out all of that crap. Judgment is one of them. So when you have something that you're torqued about, or you have judgment on, whether it's about yourself or something else, right? That's because that is leaving. It is not of love. It is not a match to the frequency vibrational neighborhood that you are moving and expanding into. So I think oftentimes when there's the thinking about the transparency and the privacy and all that kind of stuff, because we come from a linear perspective, and the first thing, again, whether it's said or unsaid, it's big elephant in the room of judgment.
Yeah.
And that's just not there. Third density, third dimension, and fourth density, frequency vibration, yeah, that happens a lot, because that's part of the design. That's part of the polarity. That's part of that separating duality schism that goes on. Because if you keep having that and keep getting it in your face, so to say, and keep rubbing up against it and having it shear against you, then it's the way to experience it the furthest from that trajectory back from where you came from, source knowing source.
Right.
And so that's how you fully step back into the truth of who you are, because you're never disconnected. And how amazing, with what grandeur have you done the mission, the ultimate mission that you've been on, which was from source, being source, to go out and know source, right? If you've gone to a place where you've forgotten that you think of judgment and the needs for secrecy and privacy and all these kinds of things, which is an anathema to the truth of who you are, which is the frequency of love, which simply is love. You don't have to do anything or go anywhere, or there's not the they're newbies, they're up from the third and the fourth, we got to cut them a break, because all that is shearing, sandpapering off, however you want to hold the metaphor, off of you right now. That's why you're tired and you're integrating. It's why you may have different parts of your body that are aching. It's why, I know someone right now who's going through a lot of things in the root chakra and the pelvic area stuff, because that's all tied to the lower emotions, so the worthiness and all that kind of stuff, and it's all letting go, and so it's all held in our physical memory and the emotional bodies and all those kinds of things. So if we're in the habit of using the words like should a lot, so should is as an energy molecule placeholder in our body, in our mental body, in our emotional body, that we're not good enough, and there's judgment and judgment of self, all that kind of stuff. So that's the first thing. I think that if people can hold that and play with that in a different way, that will be very helpful in the larger context and conversation of the transparency, because it's simply not there. So, for example, just a question that's coming in because of that. So, okay, if you're in the fifth dimension and there's telepathy, see previous video, and so people know your thoughts. So first of all, it isn't quite, like a ticker tape, and you're in a room and people can kind of glance and see all the ticker tapes going and things. So that's not like that. It's and beings who are of that higher vibration, they're not intrusive. They're not going and reading everybody and in your mental closet digging for the same thing. It doesn't work that way. It's an anathema to that energy frequency. And the real secret, or the real irony, or the real prize-winning nugget is that we're the ones who choose to let go of and clean all that stuff out, because we realize it's all illusory anyways. It's stories and things that were given to us that we took on, that we embellished, that we just built up and got proud of, and that's how we defined ourselves. That was our theme and our moniker and our story. But you don't understand. I've had, right? And as you start to notice within yourself that that's not as important anymore, that's not the place you go. That's not how you start. Well, how are you, or what's up with you? That's not where you start. Oftentimes people will start with this whole, a month ago, a year ago, 6 years ago, when I was born, and all of that was because you don't have that same identification with it, because you realize it's not you. It's simply a storyline of an experience, which is not you. It's something you walk through. It's like a movie that you went to. So was it real? Yeah. Could it have been incredibly wonderful, incredibly treacherous, or incredibly awful? Yeah, absolutely. In the 3D, more condensed, lower perspective, absolutely. Not minimizing any of that in any way, shape, or form. Very valid, absolutely. Whatever that, you would label that, it is exactly that. But it's not who you are. It's not the truth of who you are. It's like a shirt, and you take off the shirt. And when you do that, when you take those things, that's part of the transparency. You reveal. So what is something, if you think of a photograph or a transparency, think of a negative. That's another name for a negative, is a transparency. So you hold it up to a light box. Yeah. And all of a sudden, something that seemed dark now lets the light come, and it illuminates the true picture that's there. So that's kind of a good metaphor for what the transparency is. So the shadows and the density gets light shown on it and can be released, and then the trueness of who you are through that transparency and your light shining. And the light shining is not those in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th dimension with the spotlights going, okay, time for the truth. And we're going to get all your secrets out now, and we're going to just put the screws in. The light shines from within and illuminates through transparency, the beautifulness that you are. And that's really what transparency is all about.
Well, yes, and it is to a degree for me, the language again, still partially because I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm just going to give it because it came in, and I'm just going to give it out. So we were talking about privacy, transparency, secrecy.
Yeah.
And maybe it's only my own personal experience. And so I'll go with it. Maybe that's the case. However, I have a sneaking suspicion it's not just my own personal experience, but most everyone else. There may be a case for privacy. I'm going to do it like that because, again, I too feel like there is no such thing in a very big, real sense. And they there does feel to be when folks crave privacy or secrecy in regards to something, there is an energetic around that. There is for me, at any rate. Mm-hmm. Because if there's the three of us, I don't know if we've talked about it on camera, but I apparently have a superpower I've recognized for myself that I did not realize what it was until recently, that I do now feel for me that there's something about me where if you're trying to hide something, folks generally don't come around me. They just don't, for whatever the reason. And this can be people I know. It can be people that don't even know me, but they skirt around me. And this is just something I've noticed over the last several years. And well, really, I've just put together in the last several months. And so for me, I'll speak for myself and myself only. Anytime I have this intense need or feel to be private or secret about something, I'm looking into that for myself because something doesn't feel right to me about any of that. Now, I know that for my own situation and my own life experiences leading up to this moment of now, I've had a lot of experiences with my own personal body and everything. I've always told everything I've known. My grandmother used to say that about me. Leave a little secrecy, Sheila. You tell everything you know. Leave a little mystery, not secrecy. She used to say mystery. Leave a little mystery, Sheila. Let somebody figure something out about you. Don't go out and tell everything you know right away. Well, so I mean, I grew up in this whole thing. My whole life has been like that, and to a degree, right on through with the things that have happened with my body in a physical manner, with all the surgeries and the being laid bare for everybody to come in. So this has been a big topic in my life personally. And anytime and every time that communication hasn't been forthcoming and there's been privacy or secrecy involved where something's been kept from me, well, it ends up being something, not all that great. So for me, there is a specific energetic around it. Maybe not everybody feels that way. As I'm currently sitting in this body, I can only go by my own experiences so far with this. And that's why it feels to me like, not just with the energetics that have been pumping in recently, but for me personally, all my life, it's been, so what? Big deal. Whatever it is you're trying to, do, just be honest about it. Get over it. Get over yourself. Whatever. So I that sounds like don't have any compassion in regards to that, but I guess I have a, I don't want to say a block, because I like that about myself, first of all. But
well,
so
there's also what you just said that about, just come on, let's be honest about it. There's kind of the false fronts that people put on, the face, the masks,
Yes.
and all of that is, again, for, depending on how people would consciously, cognitively label it, of privacy, secrecy, it's none of someone's business and this, that, and the other thing. But again, I think if you dig down, you'll find it has to do with modesty or feeling of unworthiness, or that, again, you may not label it that way. You may label it, but if you dig and dig and dig, it's something that someone put on you when you were very young. And and so that was your way to maybe mitigate that feeling or cover something up, whatever it is. It's different for everybody, so it's kind of hard to, if speaking in the in the abstract, it's
right.
hard to be specific about it. The other thing too, in this conversation relating to transparency and really moving into an expansive state, and that they're totally different, to realize that everything has changed. We don't live in a linear world anymore. We haven't for quite some time. We don't live on the old earth that was all that you see evidence all around you of things crumbling down. So every conception, every way that you had of holding it personally, or that you maybe have learned from somebody else or a friend or a spouse or whatever it is has of it, or your social group or the larger social group or the whole social group, however you hold that, is not a good yardstick, marker, indicator, descriptor, again, come up with different things to measure it by, because it's totally different now. And it's where, unless you hop off the planet, it's where we're all going. And remember, where we're all going is to everything that is not of love will simply, in one shape, form, or another, dematerialize, for lack of that's a pretty good way to describe it, I think, because it will dematerialize.
Yay.
How it does that is, entirely, on most part, up to you. So if you're moving to something that is, if it isn't of love, it doesn't exist, then maybe that's a better, easier way for you to then play with the idea of transparency and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So it's not a place where if you have this and you've got to hide it, covet it, whatever it is, because they're going to do something to you. Well, okay, just stand over here, wherever you are. And does that even, whatever your highest and best possible descriptor feeling of love, absolute love is, right?
Yes.
Would that be of that? And since for the most part, people have had, beings on this planet have had very little, for the most part, had very little experience with the true energy frequency of love.
Yes.
So if you hold your highest and best feeling, sensing, description, of love, if what is that when you talk about transparency, secrecy, and the need for it, if you know that it's all going to that, and then some, then you can see you don't need any of that. Because I can guarantee what anybody's description, feeling of, sense of highest and best absolute love that you hold is, a shaving of minuscule of the palest pale of a few shavings on the tip of the iceberg of the true frequency of love. So, that's a good way to gauge it. We're not going into we're not going to a place where this nebulous fifth dimensional thing where everybody's got superpowers, which means that the badasses have even more. doesn't work that way. You know, not
Not bad.
well, not in the expanse of love frequency, because they can't exist. It's
I was about to say,
painful.
I'm quite badass. Sorry, I had to. I love that.
Mhm.
No, you're right. Absolutely. And so I love thank you. First of all, let me just say thank you for adding that portion about is it of love, because that's been very helpful to me in a lot of ways.
Right. Things aren't getting worse. They're going to get better. So it's really, I don't think anything born out of love is anything to get upset about in any way. I don't know.
No, but it might look a little worse to some at the
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You bet. No doubt about it. Don't mince any words. Yeah, much worse. Because, so let's play with that. This is kind of off the transparency thing, but maybe we'll just play with this for a moment. It's a whole nother show, which would be, I think, very valuable for people. Or maybe we could just stop here and we'll do that another time.
Well, we can do that if you like. It's up to you. It's you know me, I'm not sticking to anything specific.
Yeah, let's break that into another.
Okay, we can do that.
Because there's lots to play with there.
All right. Well, so we'll just end this energetic envelope here then, and all the usual stuff and all the usual. Yes, everything will be in the